The underlining theme for all my artworks is freedom and confinement. Every piece is very personal and is a reflection of my life and my journey to being free. This is a message that is really important to all people, as everyone has their own insecurities that they need to overcome. I was enabled to overcome my own while creating my pieces, as I opened myself up and simply allowed myself to be free. Before I had developed my theme, I had done a series of different artworks and explored different artistic techniques. This is a charcoal drawing I've created based on photos taken of construction workers at my school. This is the first charcoal piece I had done. My technique was still developing as I worked, as it was the first time using the material. I find now that my abilities have grown and developed, as I was then able to create a more aesthetically pleasing piece. This is a series of portraits of my grandfather that I have done in charcoal. I took photos of him while at a family event and thought they captured his happiness. I decided to include this artwork as I found it ties to my theme well. I really enjoyed working with charcoal as it has a rough quality to it, yet it can be easily softened. I started to look into artists Christo and Jean Claude. They also do lots of techniques such as wrapping, so I looked at them as my main artist study for these pieces. This next piece is my first themed work. I took 3 photos of myself wrapped in cellophane and combined them into one photo. This created a beautiful overlapping of the figures. I use a lot of cellophane in my work, as it is a key component to my theme. It is a symbol of how we are limited to freedom. The cellophane is see-through, so others can see us, but not for who we really are. It shows that everyone has something that they are covering up about themselves, which is stopping them from being able to be open and free to be themselves. I then used pastel to bring out highlighted sections of color to give the image more life. This created a softness to my work, as it showed the purity of what it is to be free. The soft figures hold a sense of sadness, as the piece's meaning is to show how the girl is trapped. I had really enjoyed using pastel, so for the next pieces I opted for more of a colorful pastel work. I used the same 3 images as used in the previous art piece, separately to create 3 individual works. I used black paper to put an emphasis on the colors included in the piece itself. I used this color palette to show the increase of freedom within myself and how I was opening up more. However, the cellophane was still an important feature, as there is still a linger of self-insecurity and confinement. I think that it is incredibly apparent that here I was still learning this technique. I used various lines and pastel movements as a way of expression. This technique inevitably developed as the pieces were in production one by one. I love how the cellophane interacts with these pieces, as not only do they bring in a new dimension to my work, but they also keep in line my theme and emotions at that time of my life. In the second piece, my technique had improved. My lines are better structured and neater, and still obtain the same concept, which was really important. The cellophane reduced as I was growing as an artist, and the facial features were more open compared to the first piece, and the body language is more personally revealing for myself. The third work is definitely my favorite of the 3. The technique had really improved, and I felt an increase of confidence during this work, as I really knew what I was doing. My development had been really fast, and I found this to become such an enjoyable art form. I went from being worried about every line to not even thinking about what my hands were doing. This was by far the fastest work to complete, as I fell in love with the color, line, concept, and even being able to make it so naturally. The cellophane is very different in this piece, as instead of having it intertwined with my hands, face, and body, I made my shirt out of cellophane. This shows how I was coming out of my confinement and was more comfortable to show the world my bare skin, figuratively speaking. I'm really happy in the way that my technique has developed, and I feel like it made me create an even better piece. This is where I started to work a little bit differently. The concept behind this piece is that it's the tearing apart of myself, showing how you feel inside when you feel so trapped in life. Originally, this piece was an etching. However, after a lot of different experiments, I found that laser cutting gave it a new quality, as the browns really brought out the texture of the clothes and the shading of my face. At this time during my course, it was Christmas holidays. While I was back at my home in Sydney, I took photos of the lorikeets that visit my house every afternoon for some afternoon tea. Birds are usually the symbol of freedom, as they are able to flap their wings and soar the earth, going wherever they geographically want in life. This photo that I submitted brought a rush of new ideas for my upcoming work. At first glance, it could be confusing as to why this image relates to my life so much. However, it is my background and my culture. It is the makeup that is me, which is why it's important for my art exhibition. And also, it ties in beautifully with my theme, which is freedom. As previously stated, birds are the symbol to be free. This idea of birds has now been heavily incorporated into my next few pieces of work. I've taken away the cellophane as now I feel more comfortable, and now that I'm opening up more as a person, I feel like now I can go from the confinement stage into the freedom stage of my artwork. This new piece is about the desire of freedom. The black and white image is the sadness as confinement felt within, while the hands of insecurity covers my body. The reason I smudged the hands across my back is because hands are actually very important to our identity. Each fingerprint is unique. By smudging the hands, I am showing how I lack my individuality. All the while, the birds show my eagerness to escape these issues and simply fly away, hence the usage of wings. I began by taking the photos myself first and then combining them into one image. I had a lot of trouble at the beginning with the wings as I couldn't find the right technique to use to show the color and freedom of it. I then came back to my love of pastel and realized that this was the perfect way to introduce the color that I needed. I then electronically scanned my wing in and fit it to the body shape that I needed it. Here's the second wing I had created. I used a different style of bird to make it more aesthetically pleasing. This is a photo I had taken of myself in Bali. At the back you can see the incorporation of birds is still there and still very important, but however now they are tattooed into my body to show the importance of them in my life. Using 3 birds represents the three countries I've lived in my life, which has shaped me to be who I am. But the ocean brings me back to my own country, Australia. I took the opportunity in Bali to take a lot of photos, and this was one of my personal favorites, which I have included. It shows their culture, and it shows, the beauty of how they live. These are their prayer offerings with incense. I find the incense to be really beautiful in this piece as it connects with the birds as the incense flies away. After I had gotten back to Jakarta, I realized how much I had missed the ocean. So I decided to do an underwater series. The reason I think doing an underwater series is so important is because underwater I really feel like I'm free. Your hair can flow, your body feels light, but you always have that reminder that you have to resurface for air. This is when we come back to our own reality. This piece was definitely a challenge as I have never painted before. Once I got the hang of it, I absolutely loved it. The flow of paint was beautiful and I enjoyed learning how to paint with such a new style of brushstrokes. I did a lot of work on the skin. There is light shining through the water onto the figure and I focused a lot on this aspect of my painting. I enjoyed this piece so much that I wanted to do another one just like it. However, this time I wanted to work a little bit more on the reflection of the water in the body rather than the actual water in the background itself. This was so enjoyable to do, and I could feel how strong of a role my theme had played in my work and life. My work had become more happy and vivid at this point. The water reflection was so much fun to attempt, and I found that painting had come more natural to me. The next aspect of my painting that I wanted to look at was the bubble. In the beginning I found this very hard because I couldn't get the round of the technique that I needed to. However, during the end of my painting I found it to be very easy. With my next piece, I started looking at my background and how and where I was raised. I took a black and white photo of myself and then photoshopped the white lines into it. I printed off a picture of Chinese blossoms to show how China would always be a part of me, considering I lived there for 7 years. I then used trans paper to apply the blossoms to the printed photo.
For this next piece, as I was working on one of my pastel pieces, I decided that when I saw the reflection of the sun in the mirror on my face, that I wanted to put the pastel on my face to match the shading. After I had done this, I thought that it was really interesting and different from my other artwork as it was more dark. And so I then printed off three pieces of the photo and began this theory of how we mask ourselves and like an unraveling of who we are. For this piece, I used Beckman as an artist exemplar. I found that his work was really interesting as it was kind of the tearing apart of people. That's what I incorporated into the chest. I photo released his piece and then I drew into it to give it more color. As I was at the end of my course, I really felt more open and that I was able to be myself. This is when I decided to do this piece of my best friend Sally dancing. The idea behind this piece is that we are able to be free, we can flow with our dreams, and that we can just simply be open. So this is what I got her to do. I got her to do whatever it is she wanted with very little of my direction. I told her what looked good in the camera, but that was practically it. I wanted her to move because I didn't want to set up a scene as I felt that that wasn't real and true emotion. I wanted it to be purely her and truly the emotion that she was portraying during the time of filming this. All of the photos that I have shown, these are the ones that I chose to use in my exhibition. I took 120 photos of her in different poses, different concepts, different ideas, and I think these reflected her and me beautifully. I had such an amazing time over these 2 years of art. I feel like I really developed myself, I developed my theme, and I grew as an artist, and this made me much more confident to know that what I wanted to do in the future was the right thing, as I feel like I am able to express myself and show others that it is okay to be yourself, which to me is really important. I feel like I've grown in the right ways and that I've developed my techniques really well. I'm really proud of what I've accomplished within these 2 years.